Welcome to lesson 2 of week 7. This will be our final micro lecture over the 7-week duration of this course. So I hope that you found it to be interesting and informative and that you will all walk away more well-rounded supply chain managers. To conclude this week, we're going to talk briefly about and summarize supply chain redesign, and then we're going to talk about transport growth and scalability. So we can conclude that in terms of supply chain redesign, based on what we've done in week 6 and the first micro lecture of week 7, that there's roughly 3 ways to improve the sustainability of logistics and supply chain systems. You could redesign your supply chains, you could use scale to reduce its negative impacts, and you can apply efficiency solutions. And all of these are not mutually exclusive, and any good company will have a balance of redesign, scale, and efficiency. Scale and efficiency is something we're going to talk about in a bit more detail because now we shift our attention to the link between economic growth and transport growth. Remember, demand for transport is derived demand. If there's demand for the product, there will be demand for transport to move that product from point A to point B. We also find that as economies grow, transport demand growth happens. And because that happens naturally, of course, your emissions tend to increase. So policymakers have been trying for a long time to decouple economic growth and transport growth. Why? Because you want to reduce the environmental costs associated with this growth. And they're doing it through the use of scale and efficiency. So let's talk about the role of scale. Just to put it in perspective, Maersk can line up their containers 2.7 times around the Earth at the equator. That just shows you the volume of freight. And that freight shipping obviously comes at the cost of the environment. And that environmental disbenefit is an externality borne by everyone. So, of course, it needs to be managed correctly. Maersk's vessels are huge. Only certain ports can handle such big vessels. It's not routine. Mid-sized ports play a feeder role and may not always be able to do it. And that's why you find there's so much of port expansion. It's about scale. It's about moving big quantities rather than smaller quantities. Why? You're trying to minimize the environmental impact. So the role of scale is to try and push quantity, almost like economics of scale. This then is the impact of increasing scale. Regardless of this impact, the question is, are these patterns of trade sustainable going forward? Can we continue to trade and do business in this manner going forward? Okay. Is it something that's going to have a prolonged environmental impact? Is it disastrous for the environment? And what are the alternatives that we can potentially use? So policymakers need to consider this. As well as looking to increase scale, many operators are also looking at efficiencies to reduce the overall environmental impact of their activities. And Table 14.1 lists just that. It looks at improving road haulage by reducing things like empty running, by using more efficient packaging and containers, by enhancing vehicle operating efficiency, as an example. And in terms of transportation, it's about moving towards better designs, better fuels to give you a reduced environmental footprint. Now, I hope you found this lesson to be informative, and I hope that it rounded up the discussion on sustainability. Please make sure that in this final week that you've completed the quiz, you've completed the assignments, and you've engaged with the material. Remember, there is an online discussion forum where you can also post your thoughts on the module and on the different topics. I hope that you have gained some value and some insight from these micro lectures. Thank you all very much.